Don't you want it? 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 You lose your little mind. Live, dead.
Deadlights Pod!
Welcome to the Deadlights Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Johnston.
And I am your other host, Leslie, bringing you your weekly dose of horror, everybody. And today we have...
Spence.
That's me.
That's Spence.
Yeah.
Welcome, Spence.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Deadlight
I'm
Space.
glad to be here.
Yeah, we just met each other right now.
This very
This
second,
moment.
Right now.
actually.
Mm-hmm.
We met right here. I just walked into the building silently.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't make eye contact with either of them
No.
until this moment so that you, the people, could feel the truth
Yes.
Yeah,
of our new love for one another.
I think so.
We were blindfolded. You
Yes.
had needles in your eyes.
Yes, so I
Yeah.
had to watch.
You had to.
Yeah.
In the eyes,
In-
not like taped to the bottom
No,
necessarily.
in it. He
Yeah.
goes,
Just how I like it.
Whoa.
Yep.
Just how I
Mhm.
like it.
Fair
Yeah.
enough.
But I'm glad you made it.
Yeah,
However
thanks.
you made it, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Um,
On this beautiful 30-degree weather.
I
Almost
know.
40 degrees
It's a
now.
balmy 30 degrees in Chicago,
yeah,
Illinois.
and we spent it being inside watching some horror movies.
Ooh,
And-
what did we watch?
Well, we just watched Opera
Oh.
from 1987, written and directed by Dario Argento. A young opera singer is stalked by a deranged fan bent on killing the people associated with her to claim her for himself.
Hmm.
Oh, oh, oh.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah,
But in Italian.
but in Italian. Yeah, but all
Bum, bum,
dubbed
bum in Italian.
But in
horribly in English as well.
Italian. That was
Um,
terrible. Why did I say that?
So I think was this your first time watching it, Spence?
This is my first time seeing this film.
Okay, so for all of us, this is our first experience with this.
Ooh.
Dario Argento obviously is a big name in horror, giallo
Yeah.
horror, horror history. So I was pretty excited actually that we got the opportunity to feature one of his movies on the podcast.
I've been looking forward to seeing more of his films. He is on that list of like alterna geek filmmakers that like that in particular alterna geek cinephiles really like to either reference or talk about. And it feels like a really big gaping hole in my viewing experience that I haven't seen very many of his movies. So the only one I've seen so far is Tenebrae.
Sure.
Right, that was like actually him. I did see the Suspiria remake, but I didn't see the actual movie. For the record, apparently he did not like the remake. Surprise, surprise.
Mhm.
It moves a little faster. Dario moves slow. I think I'm learning
does.
that. He likes to take his
Yes.
time. And, well, we'll get into that.
Yeah, he's definitely the type of filmmaker where you see one of his movies, you immediately know it's him because no one else
Yeah.
can really make a movie like him.
Oh.
And he also has this incredible ability to mix his awesome colors and cinematography and editing with music. And
Yeah.
this,
Mhm.
and that's in all of his movies, but in this one in particular, where it's about the opera, it's about a
Yeah.
singer, it's about music. So there was this like, it almost felt like we were watching an opera because there was just like almost wall to wall music in this film, which was cool. You know, it paced it out, and yes, it was a little long and slower at points, but I felt like I was pretty engaged the whole time for the
We
whole
were
ride.
taken on a ride.
Yeah.
It was a ride.
Literally and figuratively.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I could see Barry Sonnenfeld. Or Barry Sonnenfeld. I could see like Robert Rodriguez. I could see like there's like a number of filmmakers who are influenced by Argento.
Yeah.
And watching this particular movie and thinking about the other one, I've only seen the two so far, but like thinking about those two movies and what they have in common in terms of the aesthetic sensibilities, it's like, oh, this is maybe where Tim Burton gets some of that juice from.
Mhm.
This is clearly where Quentin Tarantino gets some of that juice from. This, etc. Like it's that was kind of happening in a way that was a little distracting. I'm sorry, I was a little distracted by that, but that's not the movie's fault.
No. A lot of the camera work I was really impressed by.
Oh, man.
And I
Well-
was just like, how did you do that? You know, back in the, when was this?
Late 80s, yeah.
Late 80s?
I should have made a "How the hell did you do that?" list.
Mm.
How
would
did
be-
you do that?
How'd you do that?
How'd you do that,
It was
Dario?
Shit.
Yeah, and I think that's just what I really, truly like about his films. It's the camera work. It is a whole, I mean, I know it's a whole separate instrument, and it's just a whole different like expression that he does. It's yeah, no one else is doing it like him, and I just am fascinated. I have so many things to say.
Well, let's get into it then. Let's start off with the the actual filmmaking of opera. And I mean, from the start and pretty much unrelentingly, the camera was moving. And the camera was moving through spaces, into people, as people from their POV.
As the bird.
As the bird.
As the little girl.
As the killer.
You know?
It was one of the most, to me, it felt like one of the most voyeuristic films I've seen in a while, because the camera moving constantly and moving through these spaces around people just gives you the sense someone is watching you always. And this person, it's great. This person that we're focusing on, the main character, is a person who's in the limelight, a person who's always being watched on TV by casting directors, by her friends, a person
by
who's
a little girl.
By a little girl.
Next door.
Yeah.
She's quite literally saved by a voyeur.
Exactly.
Who is also, and then there's a voyeur that's also chasing her. That's really kind of fascinating.
We have all spectrums of voyeurism in this film. Because I was thinking that too, is like, we're scared of the voyeur through this whole film, that being the killer.
We don't know who it is.
We don't know who it is. It could be anyone around that corner, behind me, wherever. And then in the end, part of her savior is someone who has been watching her.
Yeah. Who was one of the cute red herrings. There's a few of those.
Yes, which
cute little red herrings.
Dario loves red herrings.
Yeah. There's that sense of constant motion in concert with very fast cutting, which was occasionally jarring, but only because, as a film viewer in the 21st century, mostly, we're conditioned for pace to be a certain way. And really, I mean, as a film viewer in general, especially in the West, we're conditioned for film to be at a certain pace, for logic to be received at a certain pace. This movie doesn't follow that at all.
No.
If it wants to cut to a quick zoom and then cut to something else very quickly, it will do that, just so that you get like a very small piece of information, and it doesn't even necessarily give you time to process it. It seems as though it doesn't want you to process it, and that's another thing that's kind of consistent throughout the film.
And that's, I think, something that he does so well throughout all of his movies, and something that I think people really try to recreate, some more successful than others, is this laying out the story and the pieces of the puzzle in such a way where it is like completely in your face. Like, we get blatant, like, this is an information shot, but we still don't know what that means until the very end.
Yeah.
So I feel like his movies have such good watchability, because if we were going to go watch this movie again now, knowing who the killer was, knowing how it all shakes down, we're going to take those split-second shots more to heart and clock those more, because that's what he was saying. Like, so these somewhat jarring and maybe overwhelming scenes, yes, they seem kind of crazy, but it's all for a purpose. Whether it's to make us feel uncomfortable, or whether it's to slide a tiny bit of information in there without us even realizing it.
Yeah, it's mood and tone seem to really be driving the experience here more so than plotting.
And the script.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It really has, because I wrote this down a couple times actually, in here and in there. There's a kind of dream logic that this movie is arranged around. And so this idea of like obsession and a really, really strong interest in kink and
fantasy,
and like a fanciful fascination with brutality seem to be what the movie is arranged around, and everything else is more or less a carrier, a device to get us there.
Yeah, the dubbing too throughout the whole film just kind of was too distracting on my part, that I wanted it to be just muted for the script, we kept the music on and everything, and I think it would have still perhaps told a better story than the actual words themselves. But I think this is what I got also from his other movie, Suspiria, is that but the script is garbage.
Oh.
But everything else about his films are beautiful. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And the, like you mentioned, the dreamlike kind of scenes were colored in blue, just absolutely bathed in blue, and all the warning was red. Everything was just like flashing red and colors of red and just Yep. So that's what I like, because Suspiria also used that. Very.
He loves his colors. Well, I think that this all perfectly leads us into the meat of what are we actually talking about. We kind of lightly already talked about the voyeurism of this movie, and almost the dangers and the benefits of voyeurism. How they can hurt you and how they can help you. And obviously the obvious example is voyeurism bad for the stalker. We're getting this obsession, this sex crazed, kink crazed killer who wants to recreate a fantasy that he has over and over and over again, and he's stalking his victim to do it. On the flip side, we have the little girl who is obsessed with the main character as well, but in a more admiring kind of way. She wants to be her. She wants to have her life. The little girl is fantasizing about being the famous actress.
That is interesting, and one of the things that I'm not sure was brought to a thematic conclusion, but both the cop presents himself as a fan, as does the little girl. And that's interesting in like a bookends kind of way, because we meet him in the first act, we meet her in the final act, and that's intriguing. I'm not sure what to make of it, but it's just kind of an interesting thread that's there.
We have this like massive spectrum of fandom, and that kind of goes along with this voyeuristic idea, but it's an added layer that I like that this movie kind of plays with, because she's in the limelight. And we're talking about the dangers of being in the limelight and the obsession that people can have with a person without even knowing them. What I like about her character is that she is she's like a resilient hero. I can't remember exactly the phrase that they say, but she doesn't want, in the beginning, the first scene when we meet her, she doesn't want the part. She's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. It's the people, the reluctant hero. She's the one, she doesn't want to be in the limelight. She seems like she's fine not being famous and not having these big parts. Yes, it's her passion.
She didn't want to do Macbeth because it was bad.
It's cursed.
The curse.
Macbeth is cursed, everyone.
It is. Be careful.
And what's kind of intriguing to me about that, this idea of Macbeth being cursed. So there's a director character in the movie who is a filmmaker who's directing Macbeth, which is cursed. The actual director of this movie, Dario Argento, is a movie director who tried to direct a stage production of Macbeth that didn't work out. That's on my list of fun facts. Fun facts. Fun fact. So yeah, that was a self-insert character there. And so whether or not that means that the whole thing was at least in part a meditation on his bad experience of being a film director trying to do that. If you remember, there is a lot of that, you're a filmmaker and you're bringing film into our theater world and thing. There's a lot of snobbery around him being a film director, which is intriguing because, not to skip ahead or anything, but there is kind of an irresistible, oh boy, theater kind of energy to the whole thing that I found kind of irresistible, which is intriguing, juxtaposed the experience that this filmmaker seemed to or did have in the movie that maybe mirrors the experience that the actual filmmaker had when he was trying to do a play. And that's a weird kind of concentric circle of ideas that are going cross-eyed.
That now, that is what he's trying to say.
That's it.
He's trying to say, oh boy, theater.
Yeah.
Guys, I could be a filmmaker and be a theater maker.
Right? No.
No.
Well, because at the end of the film, the filmmaker returns to film. He's
Definitely.
like, he just like gives it up. And I think
He
that's
gives it
kind of
up.
what Dario realized too. He's like,
You know what?
go back to film.
Yeah.
That's another aspect of the obsession thread. We'll call it a thread for now. There's a better word out there. Callers, you call in and tell us what the better word is.
Lines are open
we're
now.
live actually right now.
1-800-DEAD-LIGHTS.
1-800-DEAD-LIGHTS. That's too many numbers, but it doesn't matter. 1-800-DEAD-LIGHTS.
Fees may apply.
I like Lost. What the fuck were we
Obsession.
talking about? Oh, Obsession. So thank you. So the director, like, an accident happens in the beginning of the movie, and the director's immediate response is "Keep going."
Yep.
Which is
Just go.
really remarkable. Someone has just died, which he didn't know about, but like a piece of equipment had just fallen, and there's kind of maybe an active fire happening in the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we got to get the scene done.
The show
which is
must go on.
Just
Show must-
remarkable.
Yeah. He's killing it.
Argento wrote this movie. And something that I found fascinating is that it seemed that he was attempting to speak to the lived experience of being a woman.
Mm.
And I think that might be part of where the movie stumbles, because, you can't do that when you don't have that body and lived experience, but it felt like he was trying to speak to that, particularly in the first act, with all that repetition about like what people think Sopranos do and what people think that women do. There was a bunch of that kind of stuff in there. So like her bracing against like the 1980s idea of institutional misogyny or something. Like, I don't know if I'm stretching, it just felt like that quite a lot. Like it was trying to speak to that. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. As the woman in the room.
Hey.
And we'll send it over to Leslie Soto.
Hello. Hi. Yes, I was very upset with a lot of scenes and actions and just overall, just the way that the women were portrayed. The scene with the costume designer and how desperate and like she just was when she grabbed the chain from the guy from the murderer after she fucking banged his head with the iron, and she was just like, eh. I'm like, why? That's not logical. Like, I don't know. At that moment, I don't think she would have just done that and just kind of started staring at it. I mean, I know that it was made out of gold, and gold was valuable back in the 80s, maybe.
It's a very good conductor.
Heat conductor.
She could have, like, I don't know. There was more that I wished our women characters would have done to be able to save themselves or other people around them. That there's a lot of girl, period, that I wrote on my notes, because I was just like, man, like,
you did say that a bunch.
oh yeah, it's like, what the fuck?
What
Why
are
are
you
you running the
doing?
opposite way?
What are you doing?
But yes, it is this perspective of a man writing a woman's perspective, and it's like, you don't know jack shit.
Yeah. None of the movie uses real world logic that in any way that I could see.
Only the birds did.
Yeah, well, even then, like I don't.
Even that logic is.
I don't know that. I don't know that real world logic carries us ever from scene to scene. So I found myself constantly asking why, but in a not so much in a why kind of way, but in a why.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, okay. Because everything on the page, like, okay, like let's take for example something that y'all called out during the movie that I was also thinking about, but maybe in a different way. Like the costume shop is covered in like shards of cloth, which doesn't make sense for like a working theater. Those places are pretty organized and there wouldn't be all of that mess everywhere. But earlier in the movie, the director or the director's companion talked about him being ripped to shards specifically, and then he commented that he's glad that he wasn't physically ripped to shards or something like that. And then like later in the movie, when they're in the fire, she tries to pick up the key that gets her out of the room with her bare hand, but it doesn't work. So because it's hot, so she rips a piece of her costume off so that she could pick it up. And then like in the thing that sort of led us to that scene was a costume being cut
Ripped.
up. You know, and so it I don't know that I have an answer for why any of that, but it was a consistent like image that flowed throughout the movie pretty much until the end of the line.
Well, maybe he is just saying that like like you mentioned, one of the fun facts is that he actually tried to make a Macbeth play and he was ripped to shreds, you know. You know, all the critics are just telling him to go back to filmmaking.
One that never got made.
And it never got made.
Yeah, never got made. Failed. Producers pulled out or something like that.
Probably. Yep. So it was just getting torn apart. And there is this mirroring of the actions that the murderer wanted to do was, it seemed like, rip this person apart. And when the seamstress, the costume designer, was trying to like redo the torn costume that Betty wears, she had a box cutter for some fucking reason and trying to cut every gem, and it mirrored that kind of like what he was envisioning as he was cutting.
Like a meticulousness. That's a really interesting notion there.
Because there was a serial killer that did that cut like women's nipples off. Just absolutely.
And also thinking about this is all about fantasy and obsession, and he as the killer is trying to recreate a fantasy that he had lived. Costumes are part of what make the theater, like part of what make the fantasy. You put on a costume to embody a character. And so this obsession with costumes is just continuing this obsession with fantasy. You're going to put this costume on for me as the viewer to be able to go to that fantasy easier. And then for him, because what is his fantasy? He wants to rip people to shreds, just rip up that's everyone, really. And so, I think that just kind of feeds back to his just obsession with recreating that old life that he had. And so, okay, that all that stuff sounds good. All these themes sound cool. But how did we actually cook it? How did they actually present these themes through the movie, and did they present them well? I thought you said something interesting earlier, Spence, where does the cook matter?
Yeah.
Does it matter?
I wrote down on our handy dandy sheets here. I wrote down not sure it matters.
Yeah.
I wrote a lot of stuff in every other section. That was like the one section I was like, I'm not sure it matters. But I will say this, every one of the sections of the movie, or not the sections of the movie, all of the elements of this movie, all of the parts coalesce. There's not a single piece of this film that I could in good conscience and good faith say they're just throwing stuff at the wall. There's a sense of intentionality, like meticulous intentionality behind every thing that happens, from the way that the camera moves to the performances that the actors give, these very big, like, melodramatic performances from everyone, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the next section. But to the colors of the lights, and the mood coding that comes with it. Like everything felt like it was put together, kind of like a clock. Like little. What do you call those things in clocks? Little gears just turning. That's what humans call them, gears.
Yeah.
All the little gears are put together with like precise movements to make the thing the thing.
Yeah.
So I would call it successful in that sense.
Yeah.
I never felt like I was seeing something that didn't feel rooted.
Yes.
Right.
This recipe, if we're going along with this food metaphor that I've set up here,
Yes.
everything is in the recipe. Really, everything that he's not putting anything extra in there, like you've already talked about, to make it too sweet, too spicy, to whatever. Everything is servicing.
He wrote a recipe first.
He did. He did.
My wife's a chef.
Oh, and I knew that.
My wife doesn't typically write recipes. She just kind of goes
Just
for it.
creates.
Here's what's in the fridge. Here's what's around. We're gonna make the thing. She MacGyvers it.
Love that.
Yes.
But this guy in this particular situation, no, he wrote a recipe
Dario's
Yes.
definitely a recipe writer. And again,
Yes.
like I've said before, he's at a point in his career where he's made a lot of recipes up until this point.
Yeah.
So he knows all the stuff that he's going to focus on. And that is something that I do really always talk about in this podcast is intentional filmmaking. And he is one of the most intentional filmmakers
Yes.
that we have ever seen.
I mean,
Yes.
some scenes are just like, oh, that came out of nowhere.
Mm.
But I mean, it tells the story.
Yeah.
You know?
And yet he's taking those elements and maybe that we've talked about in the meat and maybe not presenting them in the best way or the fullest way for, him writing a story about women's experience. He could never fully explore that in a genuine way.
Sure.
But he is trying to in this cook.
Yeah.
He's doing everything he can to, I guess.
He was clearly fascinated by I've only seen the Suspiria remake, which, as previously mentioned, he went on record as not liking. One of the things about that movie that I would say, in contrast to now the actual two Argento movies that I've seen, while it is really, really out there, there's a sense of straightforwardness to it. And straightforwardness does not seem to be on the menu here, going back to our food metaphor. That seems to, in fact, be very much antithetical to what we're trying to accomplish with opera.
And the thing is, too, even though I question a lot, and when I'm watching movies, is the logic. Doesn't make sense to me. And you know what? I'm just going to take it back. In Suspiria and in this one, now that I've watched two of his movies, he has a specific logic.
Like an idiosyncratic logic to him, kind of thing, maybe. Yeah.
Whatever the logic is, he follows through. And okay, great. It's not what I would do or agree with, but it happens. And
it's his world, I guess.
It's his world.
Yeah.
But he is intentional with all the other aspects, like we mentioned, and I still love his filmmaking. I think it's just wacky, and like you mentioned earlier, it's his film, and I think that's really freaking cool.
It ain't Monet. It's Pollock, baby.
Oh yeah. And so, okay, we're talking about horror too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the thrill.
The thrill.
How scary was this actual film? And to me, he can do tension like no other. He can build suspense so well. And I mean, in this movie in particular, where the music was such an important part of it, he's using music to build up suspense in a scene. And we know at a certain point that the killer could be around any corner.
Yeah.
And he uses that so well to make us constantly on edge.
When you use a heartbeat as the background sound, yes, it's going to kickstart my heart pumping.
There's also a visual accompaniment to that.
Yeah, with the
entire
brain
screen,
expanding.
and the entire screen warbling and
Wow,
pulsing.
wow, wow.
No.
Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, it's It's eerie. I hate it. And also the needles on the eyeball. Anything with eyeballs, I cannot do.
This is not the movie for you if you can't do eyeballs.
Definitely not.
This is an eyeball. This is a feast
Yeah.
for eyeball torture enthusiasts.
Have you seen Audition?
I've not seen Audition yet.
Oh.
So that's another alternate geek director who I think I've only seen like one of his movies. But yeah, Takashi Miike, he's another one of those cats where like I haven't seen much of his stuff yet.
I don't like torture scenes or movies, but I mean, we're doing this podcast and there's going to be
here we are.
Some
films that we're going to come across. But it wasn't too much for me to, not be able to endure it.
Well, and with Audition, and I think with this film as well, the art of what we're seeing and how they're presenting it outweighs the torture. We want to watch it because it's he shoots it so well. But even though we're watching someone get needles taped under their eyes so they can't blink and they have to watch what's going on, I mean, we're getting shots behind the needles of her POV.
I'm gonna tag that because we were talking about like story logic, real world logic versus the dream logic of this film. Like when you're watching it, it's very clear that this doesn't actually work. You tape something to my eyelids, it's going that way, I can blink just fine. It's not going to hurt my eyes. But the image is so powerful, combined with the occasional blood that you would see that is a result of her blinking. They thought about it, right? They know this doesn't work. But, what did Hitchcock say? Film should be stronger than reason. And I think that that's a perfect example of something. It was stronger than reason. Like, in my reasonable brain, it's like, that doesn't fucking work. But in my, not reasonable brain, whatever, the part of me that's just enjoying the art, I'm like, fuck. So I think that that's something, there's something to be said for that. But, like, to respond to your thing in particular, I did have a thought about that. This, like, juxtaposition of melodrama with like lovingly photographed brutality that was really jarring. That created like a unique and palpable effect.
Also, I'm an actress, so to be in the position of being like doing these scenes where she actually does have something in her, like in her like eyeball vicinity, that in itself, and then having to do 3 different torture scenes and for who knows how long. That's terrible. So I think about those things of just like, oh no, like she's had to be in this mindset of being tortured, and
yeah,
she's been on the set all day with those needles taped to her eyelids.
Don't take them off, honey.
You're fine.
This was in the days of film, so it probably weren't getting like 500 takes.
That's fair. That's fair.
True.
They had a limited amount of film.
Thank
You
goodness
only
for
had
Betty.
so many feet of film that you could shoot.
Yeah.
Thank God, Betty.
So that keys into what we were talking about earlier quite perfectly. Well done. The way that the murders were staged and blocked, there was this kind of ritualistic, meticulous thing where he would tie her up and he would put those things on so that she had to watch. And then he would perform the murder, and then he would go over to her and he would cut part of her binds so that she could release herself partially. And then she would go out into the street or whatever and pretty calmly proceed to wherever she was going to next as she processed what was happening. It felt very much like a meditation on kink, or at very least a fascination with the idea of kink. I found that really intriguing, especially as we do it 3 times, right? The first 2 times, her eyes are open, and it's the same methodology with the tying her up. The third time, we cover her eyes, which I also thought was really interesting and kind of powerful.
I liked that moment because he, right before that, was blinded partially by the birds, and then we see him blind her. That made me think, okay, everything that is being done just goes back to servicing him and his fantasy.
Yeah.
Like us as the audience and the viewer, everything that we're seeing in a film or in a play is going back to servicing us. So we get blind, you get blind. Yeah. We have to see everything, you have to see everything. And it's this using her for our own pleasure. We are using, as the viewer, as the killer, she's just an object that is in our fantasy and will change to service our fantasy.
That was what I was thinking until we got to the end. When it turns out, well, I can't say for certain what it turns out exactly, but at a minimum, it turns out that she's got a fascination of some sort with the killing that she had ritualistically been a part of watching voyeuristically as both a subject and an object of voyeurism. That's just a really intriguing thing.
Yeah, because she can have the idea of like, oh, but what is it like to be on the other side, And we have this at the end reveal that her mother, the reason that the killer is doing all this is because Betty's mother was teaming up with the killer at one point and having him kill women in front of her, and she would watch. And he's trying to recreate that now with her daughter. So I think in her mind too, she has to think like, am I going to turn out like my mother? Am I going to become this bloodlustful person that my mother was? And I think that that's kind of the killer's goal, is to get someone that is like her mother. And he thinks, if I tie her down and make her watch, maybe she'll become like her mother was, and we can go off together.
So it's Joker and Harvey Dent?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah.
He's trying to make everyone, all the audience, see his Macbeth play. He wants to fucking tie them up, put needles under their eyes so they can finally be able to see his play.
That's kind of sweet. There's something kind of sweet. I just want you to watch my play, kid.
Yeah,
that's all I want you to do.
Will you just do it? Please watch my Macbeth show.
Just give me a chance.
You've seen Macbeth like 10 times and they were all the same. Let me just do it my own way.
There's a really great dance number with a bunch of crows.
In the end, overall, how was the ride? How was the actual journey that Argento took us on? For me personally, I never really felt bored.
Nope.
It felt like we were constantly driving towards something, or at least he was giving us something interesting to look at.
Yeah.
In pretty much every moment.
Or question.
Yeah. Our brains were constantly going. That's something that he does strong, is presenting information that we inherently try to piece together before it's all laid out for us. He does it very well.
I want to see it again to be able to tie all the loose ends, and I still don't think the neighbor little girl was needed, but she needed to get the fuck out of there. So I guess she
was necessary, but that did seem like a little bit of a random moment when you have a child coming out of the vent system.
Come over here.
We did do the work of establishing her early on
a couple times,
like as a person who watched the thing, and she was a cute one of our list of cute red herrings as a silhouette that passed behind the vent. Right, we're meant to think, someone here to do some damage is what that is.
It's the killer in the vent.
I don't know why I'm using that accent to describe that, but that's just the thing. But I'll say this just one more time because this is for that section. There's that oh boy, theater sensibility, that energy that permeates the entirety of the film, that I just couldn't help but get swept up in. This movie absolutely loves theater. This movie absolutely loves Shakespeare. Fun fact. This fun fact's gonna really kind of mess with your brain.
Oh, here we go.
Messing with my brain. So check it out.
I'm buckling in.
Ian Charleson, who played the director, the blonde guy.
Yeah.
That was his last role. Right?
No, he
He's
died.
the guy that's based on Argento,
Uh-huh.
right? He died of AIDS complications 3 years after that movie, 8 weeks before performing in Hamlet. What a thing.
Oh my
What a
God.
thing.
Which he references. He quotes.
directly in the theater, and you
In
were the
the
one that
theater.
called that's where it came from.
In the theater that spoke about Macbeth, that
Yeah.
said
The
Macbeth.
Curse Show.
Yeah, hell of a thing. Curse
Whoa.
show. Now, I'm not a, curses guy. I'm a whatever gets you through the day kind of guy. So, could it be that the cursed show followed him, into the years? Sure, why not? Also, he was a gay man. We were in the middle of the AIDS epidemic, and he's a part of one of the more vulnerable parts of our population. So it could have been the curse of Macbeth, or it could have been institutional neglect around a very serious epidemic.
Yeah.
You
choose.
Maybe a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Callers, 1-800 Deadlights.
They're like, fees may apply.
Your timing was
Don't forget.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
all right. Wow. Opera, 1987.
Opera.
Lord. Opera. So let's get
Wow,
to
that was
these.
good.
Thank you.
No, mine.
Let us get to some Smash Pumpkin ratings.
Oh, Smash Pumpkin ratings.
Smash Pumpkin ratings. So, out of 5 Smash Pumpkins, how do we think Opera did? Let us start with you, Spence, the newcomer. Here
Again,
we
we
go.
could do points.
We could do a point. Yeah, out of 5. Yeah, you can go
5
down to.
smashed pumpkins.
You can go
I'm
down
gonna
to
I'm
decimal.
gonna do like out of 5 smashed pumpkins, and I'm only gonna do whole numbers here. That's what I'm gonna do.
Cool.
You do what you want to do. You do what you want to do. Do
Okay.
what you gotta do.
You do what you want.
I'm gonna do what I gotta do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give this. I'm already gonna break my own rule. I'm gonna give this 4.5
4.5
out of 5
Woo!
smashed pumpkins. I think that this movie was a sensory delight. I think that there are very few films, especially in this era. I don't want to take up too much space, but like I'm looking at behind the camera right now. There's a poster of A Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween. Those movies made up the milieu of that era in filmmaking. And that was also a period in Italy where dealing with a little bit of a recession, as I understand it. So like movie money was tight. And so I don't know enough to say that this was a direct response to Western horror films. But if you were to tell me that this film, Opera, is in effect the Giallo answer to A Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, etc., I would find it very difficult to disagree with you.
Yeah.
But hell of a movie, hell of an experience, lurid and fascinating, and very clearly influential on so many different kinds of filmmakers who I absolutely adore.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right, 4.5. Love it.
4.5.
Lely?
I'm in the same boat. I'm gonna do 4.
4.
Yeah, 4 Smash Pumpkins. If you just want to see this for the sake of just the filmmaking, please do. He is really great at that. You will learn a lot. And it just kind of like makes me. I don't know if this is a correct term, but like I want to say we've gotten to a point with filmmaking right now that is like rather neat, you know. unless you're watching an indie film or something that's going to be out of the norms of what Hollywood is trying to put out.
I thought you meant like that's neato.
Like neat.
No, as
mean
in
like-
neat.
Like
Yes.
clean.
Clean.
Yeah.
Organized
This is
and-
absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
We don't have those spin shots anymore. That we got those in the 80s, where it's like makes you want to puke. Just visit our episode of It because we talked heavily
Stephen
about that
King's It?
scene.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they're just spinning around and around and around and around and around, and you're just like, woo, this is why we don't do it anymore. But yes, there's just like these styles of filmmaking is not what we're doing as much anymore. And with the resurgence of like a lot of the nostalgic like 90s and stuff like that, I think we're gonna be seeing a lot of those kind of styles come back again, and I'm pretty excited. And it can happen with us,
Yeah,
we can
we'll
be
watch
the
'em.
filmmakers that do that.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, definitely. And I completely agree with the fact of this feels like Dario Argento is making a film for himself. And that might come from the fact of he's very much pulling from his personal experience. And he just does his thing,
Yeah.
Dario's always going to just do his own thing with his colors and his hyper realities. And it's hard not to enjoy the film. And,
Just Dario doing Dario.
just Dario doing Dario.
Yeah, that should be
And-
on a shirt. Okay, merchandise
And write that down.
idea.
Thank you.
Just
Perfect.
Dario doing Dario. TM.
And I think
Deadlights.
we kind of talked about already, in some ways, the cook of how things are traditionally presented in films
Mhm.
doesn't really matter because we have to give him props for fully committing to his Argento universe, his
Yeah, you
Argento
can't
world.
have all of the elements.
And
Sometimes you got to tweak the recipe in order
Exactly.
to make it your own.
He makes it his own, and no one else can really make him like he can. So I'm also going to give him a 4 out of 5
Yes!
on Opera.
Opera.
Opera 1987. Wow. It was quite a trip to the opera that we had.
Oh,
It
we
was
did.
quite a movie.
Oh,
Oh.
I feel cultured.
I feel so cultured. Keep your eyes open.
At some point, the title was Terror at the Opera.
Oh.
It's another fun fact.
I like opera
I
better.
like opera.
Way better.
Nice and
Yeah.
cool.
Oh God, way better.
You know?
Cooler heads prevailed on that one.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
too close to Phantom of the Opera.
Yes.
You know,
Yes, which is
Sound of Opera.
probably exactly why they decided to call it that. Because there's Phantom of the Opera vibes in the end when the killer
Yeah.
gets revealed and he's running around and half of his face is fucked up.
Fair.
And,
Yeah.
they're in the wings of
Same
the opera. I mean, they're
side,
kind of
too, right?
doing the whole. They're doing all that, so they probably wanted to reference that. And then cooler heads were like, "No, let's not do that."
Nah.
Yeah.
Screw it. We're just doing an opera. Yeah.
Love
Well,
it.
cool. Thank you so much, Spence, for being on this show.
Thank you so much for
so
having
much.
me.
Absolutely. We have one more bit of business to do before we get out of
Ooh,
here.
Nasty business. Here we go.
We got to choose the movie for next week, and you, as the
Oh.
guest,
You're
gets to
gonna
pull
help
it
us.
out
Here
of
we
the
go.
bucket.
There's over 300. Reach the
I'm reaching
reach
to
middle,
as
top,
far
whatever.
to the bottom as
Cool.
I can get.
And so when you pull it out, read the log line first, because we'd like to do a little guessing game of what it is, and then we'll reveal what it is.
Okay.
I don't know a lot of these.
Got to do.
So
Oh my gosh, it's always a very exciting part of the podcast.
the ring.
Okay, here we
One
go.
of these. Not looking. Don't look. Sam.
From the moment the new reverend climbs the pulpit, Liz knows she and her family are in great danger. Martin Koolhoven presents Brimstone.
Brimstone.
Rated R.
Oh, is
Probably.
it? Wait,
Probably.
Brimstone.
Most likely.
Wait, when is it? From.
Released in 2016. Children under
Oh,
without
okay,
parent.
never mind. I thought it was the one
Wow.
with cool voice, by the way.
Thanks.
I don't know. Which
You can
one
do
I thought
all
it
of
was.
our log line.
Yeah,
now
that
if
was,
you want to. That was great.
great.
That
Yeah.
can become like the new thing. Like you have to do your best.
We're just gonna be like, hey, Spence. No.
We got Spence on speaker. He's going to present it. Awesome. All right, cool. Brimstone.
Man.
Next week, another one that we have not seen, neither
No.
of us.
No.
So,
I've never heard of it.
Me,
Let me know
Brimstone.
what you think of it.
I
Or
put all
can
these
listen
movies
to the podcast, and then you'll tell
Please
me what
do.
you think about it for
Yes.
at least an hour.
exactly, exactly.
And you should do that too. Tune into the podcast next time.
Yeah.
Next time on Deadlights.
Wow.
Woo! Wow. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Would you like to plug yourself before we get out of here?
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
My name is Spence, and I am funky. You can find me at The Real Spence Warren on the Instagram, and check out Acoustic Cyphers if you like hip hop. You know,
Ooh.
acoustic guitars, MCs getting together, lean in for a little bit of hip hop.
Love
Acoustic
that.
Cyphers, check us out.
Love that.
Nice. Well, you can follow me on Instagram, Color Me Leslie.
And me at Beep Beep Richie T, and us at the Deadlights Pod.
Deadlights.
Also, check out Playground Social, which is the studio that we're recording this at.
right here.
But
This one.
until next time, let's get spooky.
We're gonna come and get you, Spence.
Let's get spooky.